All right, in my last video, we talked about some players I'd be willing to trade second or third round rookie picks for. Today, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to talk about a bunch of players with prices that I hate that I would be looking to trade away to acquire more second and third round rookie picks in this class. My name is Paul. This is Pure Potential. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment. Let's get into it. Now, before we get into the specific players today, I wanted to take a look at the rookie ADP from the past few years, give you kind of a realistic idea of what you're really getting with a second or a third round rookie pick. Now, this is technically startup ADP. I just took the rookies in the order they were being drafted because the rookie ADP tool on Dynasty Data Lab wasn't working right. I didn't have another good source to go by. Either way, the order here should be pretty close, certainly close enough for our purposes. But if you look at this list, overall, not a ton of big hits. Honestly, it was worse than I expected to see. And I did go ahead and color code this. Green is, in my opinion, you are clearly happy that you drafted this player in rookie drafts. And then yellow is you got something out of this player. Maybe that's a little bit of useful production, or you got a slight value increase from year 1 to year 2 and you had a sell window. So I applied these things subjectively. It wasn't any kind of a threshold or criteria, but I think it's fairly accurate. You were happy, obviously, that you drafted Bo Nix. You were happy you drafted Michael Penix, Ricky Pearsall. These are guys that have gained value, had sell windows. Bucky Irving, Jalen McMillan, Tyrone Tracy from last year's class seem like clear wins. And then Ray Davis, has maintained value, maybe gained a little bit of value from where you took him. And then looking back at previous classes, some of the big hits being Sam Laporta, Rashee Rice, Trey McBride, Amon-Ra St. Brown, to name a few. And then a number of kind of neutral or slight positive hits as well. But a lot of white space here, a lot of guys that were total busts or basically total busts, not necessarily closing the book on all of the 2024 guys, but there's no way around it. There are a lot of misses here, but I think it's important to consider the magnitude of the hits, right? When you are landing on one of these players highlighted in green, think about how that can reshape a dynasty team, landing on an Amon-Ra St. Brown or a Nico Collins, Trey McBride, Bo Nix. These are players that can change the trajectory of your team. They can inject a ton of buying power to your team. I think it's worth giving up an 11 points per game wide receiver or whatever you're giving up in this second, third round value range to have a shot at the next Bo Nix or the next Bucky Irving. Because the players that you can trade for these picks, or I should say the players valued in the range of these picks, they do not have that range of outcome. Very rarely are you finding veteran players that have the same type of ceiling upside that these rookies do. And that's why, even though the hit rates are not phenomenal, I'm still looking to make those swings. I'm still looking to take those chances more often than not. So let's go ahead and transition over to the list of players that are being valued alongside second round rookie picks. This is going to look just like it did in the last video. If you haven't checked that one out, I'll put a link down in the description. And we're going to see which players I am most eager to trade away for future seconds. So just like last time, I went over to fantasycalc.com, which has dynasty rankings generated and updated based on real dynasty trades. I grabbed all of the names that are currently being valued in between the second and third round rookie picks. I typed all those up. You should see the entire second round list on the screen right now. We're going to go through these, give some overall thoughts, highlight some individual players. Then we're going to move on to the third round and do the exact same thing. And it's important to note that these ranks are based on 12-team PPR, Superflex, non-tight end premium leagues. So let's go ahead and jump in. We're going to do this positionally, at least at first. We're going to go ahead and start with the tight ends for some reason. I don't really know why. It's just the first thing I wrote down were the tight ends. And I want to start near the top of this list, that top left section, sitting between the 201 and the 202. I cannot explain the presence of Kyle Pitts and Dalton Kincaid on this list, or at least their position on the list. I have no idea how they're still being valued this high, especially in a non-tight end premium format. I mean, I don't even love Tucker Kraft, but I would easily prefer Tucker Kraft to either of these two guys. I just think that people are still caught up on the draft capital, on the expectations that were placed on these guys as rookies. Anybody that is still holding on to the idea that there is going to be some big breakout for Kyle Pitts or Dalton Kincaid at this point, I think they just don't understand that these players have serious limitations that make it extremely unlikely that a coach is going to try to run their offense through them. It doesn't work in the current iteration of the NFL. I would recommend checking out the Dynasty Points episode that featured Max Toscano from a couple of weeks ago. They dive completely into the tight end position, some of the nuances of it, and what leads to players being on the field versus not being on the field in certain situations. And I think it's really hard to be optimistic about Pitts or Kincaid with how offenses are being run nowadays. And then looking a little bit further down, Cade Otton, sitting between the 207 and the 208. I know he had his little Linsanity run last year when everyone was hurt. Godwin was hurt. Evans was banged up. McMillan was still kind of easing in as a third-round rookie. But Otton is not the sort of talent that is going to demand volume on his own. I think he's most likely Baker Mayfield's fourth target this year. I don't even think that's controversial. Like clearly, he's going to be behind Godwin, Evans, and McMillan in the totem pole. And I think, honestly, he's more likely to be fifth. If you just combine the running backs, Rachaad White and Bucky Irving, into one guy, I'd say that player also out-targets Cade Otton. So I just don't really see what is the point here for Cade Otton, especially in a non-tight end premium. He strikes me as a player that I would not trade any second-round pick for, let alone a mid-second rounder. Next, I'd like to point out some wide receivers that appear later on this list, specifically Darnell Mooney, Rashid Shaheed, and Calvin Ridley. These players are the definition of replacement level. They just aren't doing anything really for your team. You think even about Darnell Mooney last year, who it feels like had a really good season. Like thinking back on it, like, wow, Darnell Mooney was like pretty good last year. He had 12 points per game. It's just, you can always go out and acquire one of these guys in season if you're struggling with bye weeks or injuries. But I would not be passing up on an opportunity to bring real upside to your roster just to grab one of these guys as depth. All three of these guys are the type of wide receiver you go out and get in season. If you are like really desperate, you really need to plug a hole. And even then, I don't want to be trading future second round picks for them. I just think that opportunity cost is too high. There are wide receivers you can go and get for a third, even a fourth round pick, that are going to be able to provide similar production. Like, yeah, it's not over as long of a time span, but are you going to be surprised if Adam Thielen outscores all of these players this year? What is he worth, right? You can get Adam Thielen for a fourth round pick. So I just don't see the point in investing in these players. In fact, I'd go further than that. I think it is detrimental to your team to be investing in these wide receivers if you have to do it at these prices. And then another wide receiver that's definitely not in the same archetype, but I would throw Xavier Legette in here as well. The rookie season numbers for him were just pretty awful. 1.26 yards per out run, 15.7% target share. That's really unimpressive, especially for a first round pick. And when you think about the fact that his only competition was a 34-year-old Adam Thielen and an undrafted free agent in Jalen Coker, who I definitely prefer, by the way, in Dynasty, I would just rather re-roll Legette into any second, even a future second, than double down on a pretty concerning profile here. And finally here in the round 2 range, I want to highlight some particularly risky running backs, mainly DeAndre Swift, Brian Robinson, and Isaiah Pacheco. And my issue with these guys is, first and foremost, they are all at serious risk of losing their jobs outright to rookie running backs, or at the very least entering really gross committee backfields. And normally I'm okay with a little bit of risk. In fact, I'm okay with a lot of risk. It just has to be counterbalanced with upside. I do not see the upside here. For Brian Robinson, we've got 2 years of him as the lead back. He scored 13 points per game in 2023. He scored a little over 11 points per game last year. That's the ceiling. He's not going up from there. He doesn't get receiving work. He's not a big play threat. He's just not going to surpass those numbers. So when you also weigh in the downside risk that they could just take Quinshon Judkins in round 2 or whatever, it just doesn't make any sense to me to invest in him. DeAndre Swift touched the ball nearly 300 times last year, and somehow he still only scored 12.6 points per game. I would bet good money on those total touches coming way down. And yeah, maybe there's a little bit more efficiency because the offense is better. I just don't think that Swift is going to be sitting anywhere near the lead back position in this backfield. And even if he is, I think your upside case is like 14 points per game, something like that. I would say it's more likely that the Bears add a running back, especially given that they have 2 early second round picks kind of in the Henderson Judkins range. I would say that Swift has more risk than Brian Robinson, but I view them similarly because I'd say his ceiling is higher. But either way, I'm not really touching either of these guys right now. And then Isaiah Pacheco, he might have the most upside here, just given the offense and how the Chiefs have used him in the past at times. but I don't think we're ever going back to the usage he saw down the stretch in 2023. There was a short period of time where it looked like the Chiefs were just totally willing to use him as a workhorse, and maybe that would have continued in 2024 if he hadn't gotten hurt. But I think at this point, they are more likely to implement a committee. You know, they brought back Kareem Hunt, they brought in Elijah Mitchell. If that's all they do, then Pacheco might be slightly undervalued here. But I think there's a good chance they bring somebody in. And you look at how Pacheco scores points. He's never really been a plus as a pass catcher. He can do it, but he's not adding any value to the team doing it. And now he might not even have a handle on the goal line work because Hunt was more effective than him in that regard last year. Maybe that's all injury related, but they did bring Hunt back. And I would guess if he has any role at all, that would be the role. So I think he's just going to get pinched from a lot of different directions, even without an addition. But like if you throw a third or a fourth or fifth round rookie running back into this mix here, I think it gets really ugly really fast. All right, moving on to the third round range here. I already talked about the handcuff running backs in this range in the last video. Just going to touch on it briefly again. Guys like Blake Corum, Isaac Guerrero, Jalen Wright, Braylon Allen, Marshawn Lloyd, Kendre Miller. I think these are players that are tempting to hold because you can see the role that they would fill in a contingency scenario. And I'm not against holding handcuff running backs. I think the issue is being overly confident that these guys are in fact the handcuff running backs for these teams when we have an incredibly deep rookie running back class and any number of these guys could get nuked by an incoming rookie. I think that you can flip these players for early to mid third round picks. You're going to get good running back prospects with those picks, and you're actually going to know which ones have roles, which ones are second on their depth chart. Whereas here, you're kind of throwing darts and you're just hoping it works out for you. Now, I will say if you're going to make one exception from this list, I think Isaac Guerrero is a reasonable player to hold just because that spot in the San Francisco backfield is so valuable. If the 49ers don't draft another running back, that is one of your, top priority handcuffs in redraft leagues. So I could totally see the case to hold on to Guerrero rather than flipping him. None of these other guys excite me enough to want to take on the risk that they just become zeros in a few weeks. But the much bigger problem that I see in this range is just the sheer number of absolutely nasty wide receivers that are being valued around these third round picks. I know that the odds of hitting with your third round rookie pick are low, but at least when you hit, you typically get something out of it. You can get a Bucky Irving or a Tyrone Tracy or a Brian Robinson. I don't know what people think that they're going to get from wide receivers like Quentin Johnston, Marvin Mims, Romeo Doubs, Rashad Bateman, Josh Palmer. Actually, Josh Palmer being valued around third round picks just because he signed in Buffalo. I do not understand it. Right? Even Rashad Bateman was a guy that I once had very high hopes for. He scored 9 touchdowns last year and he still only scored 10 points per game. Like, it is time to give it up with these players. They are not going to be full-time receivers, or they are not going to command targets at a high rate. It's just so rare that we see any kind of a significant breakout from players that are in their third or fourth or fifth seasons in a league after doing what these guys have done to start their careers. These are what we call roster cloggers in Dynasty because they occupy bench spots that could be devoted to players with real upside, and they never really get into your starting lineup either. Like, unless you're super desperate, in which case, who cares? Like, if you're that desperate to start somebody, I don't think the difference between Bateman or Dobbs or whoever is on your bench or whoever's even on the waiver wire is going to be a significant enough difference to win or lose you a matchup. But not only are these guys occupying bench spots, it seems like they are occupying some amount of actual value. So I am turning any of these guys into the equivalent third round picks that they're valued around without a second thought. I just think it's a very easy decision. Like, even if all of these teams, Chargers, Broncos, Packers, Bills, whatever, even if they add nobody at wide receiver in this draft, your absolute ceiling outcome is like a Darnell Mooney type of player. Maybe they move up a tier, like a half a tier in value. That's your ceiling outcome. If any of these teams add a body at wide receiver, you're looking at basically a complete zero, like a droppable asset. So I don't understand what they're doing on this list. I think that you should cash out if you have that opportunity. The last few players I'll highlight here, these are just older guys. They've had their time. They did their duty. They are near the end now. Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think there's any juice left to squeeze with these guys. I would just much rather re-roll them at this point. I don't think that they are going to give you any kind of usable production this year. Certainly not going to gain value from here. I think it's just time to kind of move on from these guys. Anyway, that's going to do it for today, guys. As always, thanks so much for watching the video. Thank you for supporting the channel. If you enjoy my Dynasty content, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It really goes a long way. And if you want even more Dynasty content from me, you can become a YouTube member by hitting the join button underneath this video or going to the link in the description. That's going to get you access to private channels in the Pure Potential Discord where you can talk to me pretty much anytime. Members only live streams on a weekly basis, and my top 200 Dynasty rankings, along with pre-draft rookie rankings that are live right now. Either way, I'll be back soon with another Dynasty video, and I hope I'll see you then.